So good evening, everybody. From the Asian Contemplative and Transcultural Studies program at CIIS, it's my great pleasure to invite you for this contemplative program today, which will celebrate the life of Vivekananda and particularly his connection with music and the percussion instrument called Pakhawaj. Vivekananda is known in the West as one of the teachers who brought yoga to America and to the entire West. But in India, he is known mainly as a great yogi and disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. So today, we'll have an occasion to think about Vivekananda, invoke his presence, read about him, and listen to a much neglected aspect of his life and work, his music. So Vivekananda was himself a great meditator and yogi, and used music as a means for his own meditation. He was a student of the Pakhawaj, an ancient Indian percussion instrument. And we are fortunate today to have with us a teacher of Pakhawaj from India, Nishaant Singh, who in fact teaches at the institution that is created in the name of Vivekananda in Kolkata. Nishaant has done research on the drum beats of Vivekananda, the compositions of Vivekananda. And he has adapted these to forms of contemplation and meditation. So it is our honor to be privy to that research here today. Along with Nishaant, we have Sylvia Nakash, who is adjunct faculty in Asian Contemplative and Transcultural Studies and a famous musician in her own right. And she will be accompanying us, or Nishaant, in this contemplative exercise. I will also be reading passages from Vivekananda to bring his presence to our midst as somebody who lives with us and is one of the inspirers of this university. So to start with, I would like to invoke Vivekananda through what his teacher, Sri Ramakrishna, said about him as a form of inner experience through which he knew about Vivekananda even before he met him. So these are the words of Ramakrishna. As a prelude to this, it is important to recognize the fact that in Indian yoga, in spiritual understanding, there is a division of reality into two zones that in Vedanta are called Vidya and Avidya. Vidya is the zone of oneness, of undivided reality. And avidya is the zone of multiplicity, of separateness, of people and things that see the world and experience it from their own point of view, with everything else experienced as another. So this description of Ramakrishna invokes this particular division of reality. He says, "One day in Samadhi, I saw that my mind, going up by a luminous path, went beyond the gross world, studded with the sun, moon, and stars. It entered first into the subtle world of ideas. The more it ascended to higher and higher strata of that realm, the more did I see ideal forms of gods and goddesses existing on both sides of the path. It came gradually to the end of that region. I saw that a fence made of light separated the realm of the divisible from that of the indivisible. Leaping over that fence, my mind entered by degrees the realm of the indivisible. No person or thing having a form existed there. As if afraid to enter, even the devas and devis, possessing heavenly bodies, exercised their authority over realms far below. But the very next moment I saw 7 seers, having bodies consisting of divine light only, seated there in Samadhi. I felt that in virtue and knowledge, love and renunciation, they excelled the gods and goddesses, not to speak of human beings. Astonished, I was pondering over their greatness when I saw before me that a part of the homogeneous mass of light in this abode of the indivisible, devoid of the slightest tinge of difference, became solidified and converted into the form of a divine child. Coming to one of those sages and throwing its soft, delicate arms around his neck, it embraced him, and then calling him with a voice sweeter than the music of the veena, made great efforts to wake him from Samadhi. The sage woke up and with half-shut eyes beheld the child. I, seeing his bright expression full of delight, thought that the child must be the treasure of his heart, that their familiarity was eternal. The extraordinary divine child then expressed great joy and said to the sage, "I am going. You must come with me." The sage did not reply, but his loving eyes expressed assent. Looking on the child with eyes of love for some time, he entered again into Samadhi. I was astonished to see that a part of the mind and body of that rishi, converted into the form of a bright light, came down to earth along the luminous path. Hardly had I seen Narendra, which was the earlier name of Vivekananda, then I recognized that he was that rishi. So this gives us a glimpse of the inner life and the archetypal truth of Vivekananda. I'd also like to read a short passage on the first meeting between Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. This is happening in 1881. This is in Vivekananda's words. My first visit to Sri Ramakrishna was at the temple garden at Dakshineshwar in his own room. That day, I sang 2 songs. As soon as I had finished the first song, the master stood up, took me by the hand, and led me onto the northern veranda. As soon as we were on the veranda, the master closed the door. I thought he must be giving me some instruction in private. But what he said and did next was something I could never have believed possible. He caught hold of my hand and began shedding tears of joy. And then suddenly he folded his palms together and began addressing me as if I were some divine being. I know who you are, my Lord. You are Nara, the ancient sage, the incarnation of Narayana. You have come back to earth to take away the sufferings and sorrows of mankind. I was absolutely dumbfounded. I said to myself, what kind of man is this? He must be raving mad. How can he talk like this to one who is nobody, the son of Vishwanath Datta? But I didn't answer him and let this wonderful madman go on talking as he chose. I will now turn to Nishaant to introduce the Pakhawaj and Vivekananda's involvement with it.
Namaste everyone. I am a fulbright fellow and I'm doing my research from the Ali Akbar College of Music. I'm learning this instrument since past 20 years now, and I was learning in a lineage of Vivekananda and I didn't know about it. I was learning from my guru. His name is Pandit Chanchal Kumar Bhattacharya, and his grandfather, my guru's grandfather, and Vivekananda used to learn from the same guru, and I didn't know about that. So I started learning from him, and I learned a lot of things from him for around 15 to 16 years. And then after all those years, I came to know that I was learning the compositions which even Swami Vivekananda used to play on his instrument, and even he learned this Pakhawaj instrument. And I'm very fortunate to learn all those compositions which he had written in his first musical anthology. Its name was Sangeet Kalpataru. So the Sangeet Kalpataru had 134 compositions in different talas, like different beat cycles, and he had written all those compositions which he had learned from his guru, and his guru was Mridangacharya Murari Mohan Gupta from Calcutta. So he wrote all those compositions, and I happened to learn these compositions from my guru, and I recorded these compositions. We extracted these compositions from the book and recorded as a audio album in 2014. So I would present some of those compositions today in front of you. And these are very, very sacred compositions in my point of view, because I think, like, I'm very, very thankful to Swami Vivekananda that he wrote all these compositions in his book, and we can still find our roots through this book, Sangeet Kalpataru. This instrument is actually, its precursor was known as mridanga, and the instrument mridanga was very famous during 1500 BC to 600 BC. So it was the prime accompanying instrument for the Vedas. So that's the Vedic age, and this was the prime drum which used to accompany all the Vedic chants. So this instrument was modified after the medieval period in India, after the Muslim invasion, and the body actually used to be constructed from mud or the clay. So the Sanskrit word for the mud is mrit, and the body is anga. So the combination of these two words, mrit plus anga, forms mridanga. So that was what the instrument was known before this. And then because this instrument was also a court instrument, it was a royal instrument for the kings in the courts. So the musicians started traveling, and then it was very delicate to protect the instrument all the time, because it was made up of mud, clay. So they modified and tried to make the body out of a metal, which didn't work well. But afterwards they started making the wooden body. So they tried the sandalwood, which was the best, and then they explored a lot of different kinds of woods like jackfruit, and even mahogany is very popular these days. So this is a mahogany wood. You are looking at the instrument, which is painted. It is actually not painted. These are like polished woods, but this is customized especially to make it beautiful. So the instrument is actually an instrument which was used to chant the Vedic mantras also. So I would like to chant Shiva Stuti and present this idea of how this instrument sounds with the chant. So I heard from my guru that Vivekananda's playing of Pakhawaj was very soft and solemn. So I'm trying my best to play soft and solemn. So the both of these sides are actually invented after listening to the roaring clouds. So this resembles the roaring clouds, and this represents the rainfall. It's a combination of natural elements. So both of these tone combine to sound Om. The Shiva Stuti. Omkaram bindu sanyuktam nityam dhyayanti yogina kamadam mokshadam chaiva omkaraya namo namah. Namo Namah. Omkaraya Namo Namah. Om. So this instrument was also the favorite instrument of Ganesha and Lord Shiva, and this instrument also presents some of the compositions which the player praises the Lord Shiva and Ganesha and different gods and goddesses. So the first instrument, the leather instrument, was Rudra Damru, the Damru instrument which was born with Shiva. So I would like to create a sound effect of the Rudra Damru. So that's how the Damru sounds. भाल चंद्र चिटा में गंगा करत हर हर भस्म अंग मृग चर्म पहनि नाचत शिव आनंद दाता धगन धगत धगन 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 दिन धगन ता कृतक कृतक ता कृतक कृतक ता कृतक धृगत 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 ता कृतक कृतक ता कृतक ता कृतक ओम नमः शिवाय कृतक ता कृतक ता कृतक ओम नमः शिवाय कृतक ता कृतक ता कृतक ओम नमः शिवाय. So this is how the Pakhawaj players used to praise Lord Shiva, and we also have different stotras like this. So Vivekananda used to play this instrument and had compiled lots of compositions from the style which was known as Lala Keval Kishan Gharana. So he used to learn from that style, and which is the most popular style in Bengal. still. It's the oldest existing style in India right now. It was established during 15th century. So I will be playing some of those compositions which Swamiji had written there in the book. Some of them are compiled and some of them are his own compositions also. Play this. I need that effect. So you can close your eyes and feel the drumming.
we move on to the second visit of Vivekananda to his teacher Ramakrishna. This time he walked a very long distance to find the home of his master. He says, "After asking many people the way, I arrived at Dakshineshwar at last and went straight to the master's room. As soon as he saw me, he called me joyfully to him and made me sit down on one end of the bed. He was in a strange mood. He muttered something to himself which I couldn't understand, looked hard at me, then rose and approached me. I thought we were about to have another crazy scene. Scarcely had that thought passed my mind before he placed his right foot on my body. Immediately, my eyes, which were wide open, saw everything in the room, including the walls themselves, were whirling rapidly around and receding. And at the same time, it seemed to me that my consciousness of self, together with the entire universe, was about to vanish into a vast, all-devouring void. This destruction of my consciousness seemed to me to be the same thing as death. I felt that death was right before me, very close. Unable to control myself, I cried out loudly, "What are you doing to me? Don't you know I have parents at home?" When the master heard this, he gave a loud laugh. Then, touching my chest with his hand, he said, "All right, let it stop. It needn't be done now. It will happen in its own time." To my amazement, this extraordinary vision vanished as suddenly as it had come. I returned to my normal state and saw things inside and outside the room standing stationary as before. Soon after, Naren went again to visit his master. This time, he met another disciple and began discussing spirituality with him. They were both skeptics. He says, one day Naren, Vivekananda's earlier name, was telling Hazra, this is the other disciple, about Vedantic non-dualism and his unwillingness to accept it. Can it be, he said, that the water pot is God, the drinking vessel is God, everything we see and all of us are God? He laughed scornfully at the idea, and Hazra joined in merriment. While they were laughing, Ramakrishna came upon them. "What are you talking about?" he asked Naren. Then, without waiting for an answer, he touched Naren and went into samadhi. Naren related the effect of the touch. At the marvelous touch of the master, my mind underwent a complete revolution. I was aghast to realize that really there was nothing, whatever in the universe, but God. I remained silent, wondering how long this state of mind would continue. It didn't pass off all day. I got back home and I felt just the same. Everything I saw was God. I sat down to eat and I saw that everything, the plate, the food, my mother who was serving it, and I myself, everything was God and nothing but God. I swallowed a couple of mouthfuls and then sat still without speaking. My mother asked, "Why are you so quiet? Why don't you eat?" That brought me back to everyday consciousness, and I began eating again. But from then on, I kept having the same experience no matter what I was doing. Eating, drinking, sitting, lying down, going to college, strolling along the street. It was a kind of intoxication. When that intoxication lost a part of its power, I began to see the world as though it were a dream. When I went for a walk around Cornwallis Square, I used to knock my head against the iron railing to find out if they were only dream railings or real ones. The loss of feeling in my hands and feet made me afraid that I was becoming paralyzed. When I did at last return to normal consciousness, I felt convinced that the state I had been in was a revelation of non-dual experience. Then I knew that what is written in the Vedanta is all true.
So there are some compositions of Vivekananda extracted from the same book, Sangeet Kalpataru. There are different styles in India. There are almost 17 different styles of playing this instrument in India, but right now there are almost 4 styles existing. And one of them is this style, and it's only practiced in the West Bengal. These compositions are unknown to other states, or no one has learned this kind of style in India also. So I am playing some compositions which Vivekananda liked very much. These are very melodious, and it has a different kind of ambience in it. There are different kinds of patterns, but at the same time it has a different poetic approach in it.
क्रेधेत क्रेधेत घे घेते टेका तागदी घेने तागेदेत
धा तिरकिटी तक धाग दीघेने नग तग तग दीग तग धागे दीन दाना नाना का ताक तिरकिटी तक तग धा कृधान धा धागे दीन दाना नाना तक्का थूंगा क तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी किटी तक तिरकिटी धा क्रेधेत क्रेधेत घे घे ते टेक ताग दीगन तागे ते ताग दीगन नग कताकत तिरकिटी तक तक ताग ताग दीग ताग धागे दीन दाना नाना कताक तिरकिटी तक ताग धाग्र दान ता धागे दीन दाना नाना तक्का थूंगा क तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी धा धा तकटी दान धा तिरकिटी तकटी कतटी दान नाना नाना कतटी दान तिरकिटी तक धा तिरकिटी कतटी दान तिरकिटी कतटी दागन तिरकिटी कतटी दागन तिरकिटी कतटी दागन धा तिरकिटी कतटी दागन तिरकिटी कतटी दागन तिरकिटी कतटी दागन धा तिरकिटी कतटी दागन तिरकिटी कतटी दागन तिरकिटी कतटी दा तिरकिटी कतटी घिंतान कत्था दी कत दीदी कत घिन नाना घिन तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक धा तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक धा तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक धा तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक धा तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक धा तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक धा तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक धा तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक धा तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक धा तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक तिरकिटी तक धा
शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दारूपम्
though Naren had the non-dual experience of Brahman by the grace of his master, he still could not accept that all the energy in the world was driven by the power of the divine consciousness. This is the consciousness that Ramakrishna worshipped as Kali. So Naren kept thinking that Ramakrishna was just a devout worshipper of idols, of a goddess whom he could not resonate with. But in 1884, his father died. And along with the death of his father, the means of sustenance of his family came to an end. They had a very difficult time surviving. And Naren had to look for jobs, often bit jobs, none of which were long-lasting. He had a very difficult time along with the rest of his family. During this period, he went to Ramakrishna asking him if there was any power by which things could be helped for him. So this is the point where he recounts his experience with Ramakrishna. He says, 100,000 thoughts about the family occupied my mind. I began going from place to place now as before and made various kinds of efforts. I worked in the office of an attorney and translated a few books, as a result of which I earned a little money and the household was managed somehow. But these were temporary jobs, and in the absence of permanent work, no arrangement for the maintenance of my mother and brothers could be made. I remembered later what Ramakrishna said. And I went to him asking him to pray for the benefit of my family. The master said to me affectionately, "My child, I cannot pray for you. Why don't you pray yourself? You don't accept Mother Kali. This is why you suffer so much." Well, today is a Tuesday, a day especially sacred to the Mother. She will, I say, grant you whatever you ask for. Go to the temple tonight. Bow down to her. Pray for a boon. My affectionate mother is the power of Brahman. She is pure consciousness embodied. She has given birth to the universe by her will. What can she not do if she wills? A faith arose in my mind that if I pray to the Mother, inasmuch as the Master has said, I will be helped. I waited for the night in expectancy. 3 hours of the night elapsed when the Master asked me to go to the temple. As I was going, a sort of profound inebriation possessed me. I was reeling. A firm conviction gripped me that I would actually see the mother and hear her words. Coming into the temple, I saw that Kali was actually pure consciousness. She was living and was really the fountainhead of infinite love and beauty. My heart swelled with loving devotion, and beside myself with bliss, I made repeated salutations to her, praying, Mother, grant me discrimination, Viveka. Grant me detachment, Vairagya. Grant me divine knowledge, Jnana, and devotion, Bhakti. Ordain that I may always have an unobstructed vision of you. My heart was flooded with peace. The whole universe completely disappeared, and the mother alone remained, filling my heart. No sooner had I returned to the master than he asked, Did you pray for the removal of your worldly wants? Startled at his question, I said, No, I forgot to do so. So what should I do now? He said, Go again and pray to her. I started for the temple once more, and coming to the mother's presence, became inebriated again. I forgot everything, bowed down to her repeatedly, and prayed for divine knowledge and devotion before I came back. The master smiled and said, Well, did you tell her this time? I was startled again and said, No, hardly had I seen her when I forgot everything on account of the influence of an indescribable divine power and prayed for knowledge and devotion only. What can I do now? The master said, Silly boy, could you not control yourself a little and make that prayer? Go once more and tell her those words, quick. I started a third time, but as soon as I entered the temple, a formidable sense of shame occupied my heart. I thought, what a trifling thing have I come to ask of the Mother of the Universe. It is, as the Master says, just like the folly of asking a king, having received his grace, for gourds and pumpkins. Ah, how low is my intellect! Overpowered with a shame and aversion, I bowed down to her over and over, saying, I don't want anything. Do grant me divine knowledge and devotion only. When I came out of the temple, it occurred to me that it was certainly the play of the master. Otherwise, how was it that I could not speak the words, though I came to pray to her as many as 3 times? Afterwards, I insisted that he ensure my mother's and brother's freedom from lack of food and clothing. It is certainly you who made me intoxicated that way. As I kept persisting, he said, All right, they will never lack plain food and clothing. And this led to a certain kind of amelioration of the domestic condition. Nishaant, I will ask you to do a little stotra to Kali on the Pakhawaj.
Like I had presented a Shiva Stotra in the beginning, so we also have a Kali Stotra. So Kali is strength, and there is a composition of Bhima Kali. Bhim is he belongs to the Panch Pandavas, one of the brother who was very, very strong, and Kali even resembles the strength of Bhima. So here's the composition for Bhima Kali. भीमा काली जय माँ अम्बे, जय जग जननी जय जगदम्बे, मृदंग ध्वनि सुनि प्रसन्न अम्बे, धगतिटि धा गदिगन धा गदिगन नगतिटि किटि तग तगतिटि किटि तग तगतिटि गदिगन धा किटि तग तगतिटि गदिगन धा गदिगन नगतिटि किटि तग तगतिटि घ्रान्दिता तिटि गद गदिगन महाबला सौभाग्यदायिनी आदि शक्ति सिंहवाहिनी धातिरि किटि तग तातिरि किटि तग तिरि किटि तग माँ भीमा काली जय 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 माँ भीमा काली जय 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 माँ भीमा काली जय 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 जय। मृदंग ध्वनि सुनि प्रसन्न अम्बे धगतिटि धा गदिगिन धा गदिगिन नगतिटि किटि तग तगतिटि किटि तग तगतिटि गदिगिन धा किटि तग तगतिटि गदिगिन धा गदिगिन नगतिटि किटि तग तगतिटि घ्रान्दिता गद गदिगिन महाबला सौभाग्यदायिनी आदि शक्ति सिंहवाहिनी धातिरि किटि तग तातिरि किटि तग तिरि किटि तग माँ भीमा काली जय 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 माँ भीमा काली जय 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 माँ भीमा काली जय 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 जय।
Vivekananda says 2 or 3 days before Sri Ramakrishna passed away, she whom he used to call Kali entered this body. It is she who takes me here and there and makes me work without letting me remain quiet or allowing me to look to my personal comforts. For that. Sylvia. After Sri Ramakrishna died, Vivekananda became a monk. He traveled the length and breadth of India, looking at various places, all on foot. Finally, he came to the southernmost tip of India, Kanyakumari. in 1892, December. He felt a great exaltation at the tip of India, and from there he swam across to a rock which was the southernmost point of India, jutting out into the ocean. He meditated there all night, waiting for a sign for the future. There he saw the continent of America beckoning him for a visit. That night, he dreamt of Ramakrishna walking into the ocean and calling him to follow him. This gave him the Adesh, or divine command, that he was looking for. It brought him to America in 1893 to the Parliament of World Religions, where he gave his famous talk and thence traveled across the US, setting up Vedanta centers. This was the initiation and introduction of yoga to the West that Vivekananda was missioned to carry out in his life. Very soon after, in 1902, Vivekananda passed away. He passed in a state of meditation. He went into a deep meditation and left his body. We end a few years after that. It is 1908. It is the height of the anti-colonial movement in Bengal. Aurobindo Ghosh, who is the leader of that movement, has been put to jail. He is waiting trial, perhaps for capital punishment, for activism against the British. Just a year before, Sri Aurobindo has had an experience like that of Vivekananda. He has experienced the state of non-duality and actually the state of the eradication of the ego that is known as nirvana. The world is unreal to him. In the jail cell, he has new experiences. He experiences what Vivekananda experienced as Kali, as the power of consciousness that has become all things. He experiences the divine in the heart of all things. And for 3 weeks, he is visited by Vivekananda. Vivekananda visits Sri Aurobindo in the jail cell to show him the unfinished evolution of the human. There are ranges of universal consciousness that are yet to be normalized in human beings. And this then becomes the later work of Sri Aurobindo. A work that in its own way is continuing here through the disciple of Sri Aurobindo, Haridas Chaudhuri, who established the California Institute of Integral Studies. Vivekananda lives even with us today. And like he came to Sri Aurobindo in the jail, he can visit us, inspire us, show us the way to the unfinished evolution of which we are all participants. We invoke the spirit of Vivekananda. I ask Nishaant to close with an invocation through the Pakhawaj.
Thank you so much.